I want to get into the photography business, and here's a roadmap. Okay, and this is the map these are the paths that you're supposed to follow. Well, lots of times, even Google Maps, you look at these maps. Sometimes they're old. Maps are a guide. Maps are a guide to take you in the direction you want to go, but along the way, you need to make some decisions because the road's going to split. Not, you either left or right or straight, or maybe there's 4 or 5 forks in the road. Close your eyes and imagine yourself in the future, but speak to it as if it's currently happening. And so basically affirmation of the lifestyle that you dream of, that you think about. Put yourself there in that lifestyle of, in my instance, hanging out with celebrities, hanging out with Weird Al Yankovic, whatever. It could be that outrageous because it's still in your mind, but get the idea and the comfort that I'm comfortable with hanging out with celebrities. That's kind of, like, hey, they ride in my car, I'll pick them up, we'll go out and get froyo or whatever together, things like that. That is part of the vision I had. I also had that vision of that beach house. Now, these aren't things that specifically say what type of job I'm going to have, but the decisions I'm going to make as far as the type of jobs I'm going to take are based on that vision of, how am I going to get there through this job? Now, it's not like someone can go out there and say, okay, well, I'm going to be a photographer, especially coming right out of college, I'm going to be a photographer and live this type of lifestyle like Alan does. No, that's not going to happen. You got to do make your dues first. I don't regret the time I spent as an engineer. And those were good experiences because I made money. I got to buy a home, support my family. I learned a lot about business. I learned a lot about sales. I learned a lot of technical things that applied to now my photography business. If I started a photography business right out of college, I think I probably would have failed.
Actually. You would have probably quit. You would have been like, oh,
yeah, because I had no experience about clients and networking and relationships and sales and market. I would have not known about any of that. And so my career as an engineer, project manager, designer, salesperson gave me all the tools I needed to run my business now. But the decisions I made on the way were based on the vision I had at that time. Like, for instance, at one time, we always believed that we were always going to live in California. And we decided at one point that we're never going to buy a home because it was too unaffordable. We couldn't afford to buy a home in San Francisco Bay Area. So, but what happened was that there was this opportunity to take a job in Seattle, and I saw the home prices up here, and it was like, oh my God, that's so affordable in Seattle. And based on the lifestyle, I didn't think of myself on the beach or a house in California. I just knew that it was those visions of that, they weren't that specific. So when I was able to transfer that idea into possibly being in Seattle in the state of Washington, that decision opened up that I made that decision to leave California and come to Seattle because I wanted a particular type of lifestyle that I wanted to lead, that where I was in the San Francisco Bay Area didn't really allow me to do that. So that's how I made that decision to come up here and raise my family up here, because it took me closer to where I wanted to be.
Right. It's like setting the goal and letting the road that you're on change. It's still achieved the thing. So you're, by not attaching to one road, I often use this as a metaphor. It's like and I've done this. I've done the opposite. I set a goal. I set the road I'm going to go on, and then the road sucks. There's potholes. You can't get there. Or like in your case, it's expensive. Maybe it's a massive toll road, like whatever you want to add into the story. And then come to find out there's another road just over there that goes where you want to go.
And you didn't see it.
Yeah. And most of the time we don't see it, but you were open to allow the road to change. So one of my favorite things to say is don't give up on your dream, but be willing to change the path to get there.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. And you're right. And, people think about, well, I want to get in the photography business, and here's a roadmap. Okay, and this is the map that these are the paths that you're supposed to follow. Well, lots of times, even Google Maps, you look at these maps. Sometimes they're old. It doesn't have all the information. Doesn't have all the exact turns, and maybe they took a road out and they added a road. And these things, maps are a guide. Maps are a guide to take you in the direction you want to go. But along the way, you need to make some decisions because the road's going to split. Not, you either left or right or straight, or maybe there's 4 or 5 forks in the road. And sometimes you take the wrong one and it leads you down the wrong path and you're going in the wrong direction. Sometimes you got to back out or take a different path out of that, the way you thought you were going was the right way, and takes you out and closer to where you want to go. And so you have to have that sort of goal or idea, that vision, so that when those forks come up in the road, it will help guide you in the correct direction. Do I go left? Do I go right? And that's,
it just reminded me of Jim Collins, who wrote Built to Last, and he studied the companies that have lasted 100 years plus, and the biggest thing that he found with the most successful companies, they stayed true to their the core beliefs of what they wanted, and then everything else was willing to change. Everything else was up for grabs, up to change, and that was what I mean. There's other things in the book, Built to Last, but out of everything, if I were to pick one thing from the book that really stood out that made the difference, and they use comparables. They're like, this company and this company were very much the same, started very much at the same time, and then one let everything change but their core beliefs, and the other one didn't, and they're no longer around. That this is just another reinforcement to what you're saying, and it's so beautiful. And so back to to reinforce. And these are great stories. I love I talk in stories all the time, or metaphors. Look how many times I did it in this podcast. But just to reinforce, the idea is to dream. What you're saying is close your eyes, dream of the life you want, not the how. And I've heard this many times too. Like sometimes when we dream about the how, we actually slow down our achievement of our goals. So, and I think I'm just coming back to your point. So the first step coming from Alan would be to close your eyes and dream of your life the way that you would want it. And then start to be open to the changes you need to make in your life. And I brought that word up. I know you didn't say that, Alan, but I want to pass this back to you, because ultimately in the end, to get what you're talking about, so you can dream about it, then ultimately you have to be willing to change. Because let's face it, if you don't change, then nothing will be different, right? And you'll just keep doing the same thing.
Yeah, that's right. And so there's this thing called comfort zones. We know about comfort zones. And years ago, I did this workshop with James Newman. It was Release Your Brakes. And he came up with this idea of comfort zones. And if you get in this comfort zone and you go out of that comfort zone, your body's and your mind starts to feel a little bit nervous. And so the way to do something new and to change is to think about yourself out of that comfort zone into this new area, and get in your mind and do your affirmations at night and think about you now in that out of that comfort zone. And so that now that this is your new sort of self-reality, you put yourself in there, and that you start moving yourself out of that old comfort zone, out of the old you, and moving into this improved vision of yourself. But you do have to be willing to change. Absolutely.
That's it. Always. I mean, if you dream of something and then you keep doing the same thing, then nothing can change. And you just hit on another point that I have a saying for, is like, success doesn't always feel normal, because it really doesn't. If you think about it, like wherever we want to go, and our success is usually a place we've never been, so we have no experience of it. Our mind loves to just know. Like as children, we grow up, you learn what a chair is. You don't have to relearn what a chair is. You know how to sit down. Even if you think about learning to drive, at first you're thinking about everything. How do I turn? Where's the signal? How much gas do I put? Do I hit the brake now or later? Then later, now you hate to say it, but as an adult, you like get home and you're like, I don't remember driving home. I just arrived, because it was so much subconscious. So I think human beings, we love and the human brain wants to be efficient. It's made up that way. So it's always wanting to get into some sort of autopilot. And then guess what happens? We go and dream, and then we screw all that up, and our mind's like, what? WTF? What are you doing? We have it all set. Life is perfect. We're alive. And then so that's why it gets uncomfortable, and even fear can show up because the human mind is saying, hey, we've got it good. We're breathing, yeah, it's not as comfortable as you'd like, but you're alive, Yeah. so it pushes out of that. Yeah,
absolutely. And life is constantly changing. And if you don't adapt to that, you're going to be left behind. You're going to be stuck in this, the old ways. My old way, which just a couple months ago was just fine. And that was taking photos of large corporate events and going to, live theater and parties. And, 2 months ago, that was just fine. And now if I keep thinking I'm going to do events, my business will die at this point. And so I need to adapt. I need to change. So right now I'm doing a lot of education, online training of different techniques and different parts of photography that I've done a little bit of and kind of knew about, but now I'm getting a much better training and better understanding, so I can be much better at those areas. Maybe eventually I'll go back to events when things come back around, but right now I can't stay in event business because it's not there right now, and I have to change or I'll lose my house. It's just that simple.
Hey there, I want to give you something really big. It's called Clear Path to Customers. It's the way that we get the right language to get the right client. I like to call them your wow clients, so that you can have more results, more revenue, more raving fans, and more referrals. And I want to give this to you absolutely free. And all you have to do is go to stevenapolitan.com to check it out, or you can look at the description here. We'll put the details there. As always, remember, choose gratitude and create freedom.